Welcome, everyone. I'm going to be going over ancillary materials, and it's a complement in some cases, addresses a few of the issues that Justin just mentioned. But again, this focuses on a specific aspect that we have. And I just want to give a little of a bigger picture before we jump into the nitty-gritty aspects of what we are dealing here with. So it's important oftentimes to emphasize what our goal is. So we have mission statements and strategy maps and lots of things like that all over the place in order to be able to do it. But the underlying goal that we have is essentially to Okay, is to supplant the exploitative for-profit activities in the classroom. That's basically what we're trying to address. And as a faculty member, as many, if not most of us are in this room, we are the last chain involved in this process of exploiting our students for profit when we actually select the textbooks for students we have or select the homework that they have, or a handful of other things that are out there. Um, but being the last chain also means that we have the ability to break the chain, which is the whole point of why we've actually created the LibreVerse, because this is something that we can do very clearly while trying to address other issues like tuition, which is also a financial barrier, and some people can argue quite nicely that it's a bigger barrier financially than textbooks or other resources out there. It's much harder in order to influence as individual faculty or even as faculty as a whole, because there are a lot of realities associated with actually running or handling tuition. Um, so if that's the theme that we want to be able to view everything that we are doing, which is really a good window for explaining it. It does justify some of the points of why we don't focus on one specific aspect. So the in order to talk about this, I need talk about these things. I need to talk about what ancillary materials are. Um, and ancillary materials are typically materials that are outside of the core curriculum, typically the textbook. And that could be things like test banks, quizzes, lecture notes, slides, lesson plans, homework platforms, workbooks, lab manuals, videos, multimedia, interactive content. Nowadays it would be AI models, et cetera, et cetera. If we want to supplant the commercial publisher from the classroom, we need to be able to address all the features that the commercial publishers provide. And what they do is they provide us as faculty with a pair of golden handcuffs. They say, adopt this book, and you get this homework system, and you get this slide deck, you get these interactives, you get this AI powered blah blah blah. You get this, you get this, you get this, and then you take it all, and then comes a situation that you want to extricate yourself from the commercial publishers in the classroom. And what do? Well, you have to take the place of the textbook, the homework system, the slide deck, the ancillary material, the AI, and all the stuff that's off there. So commercial publishers know how to operate. They've been doing this for a long time. We willingly put on ourselves golden handcuffs in order to be connected to them, and we want to be able to break that. That means we need to be able to have all those technologies and all those features available in order to supplant those textbooks. So if you've looked at the evolution of OER in the last several decades, you'll see that it predominantly focused on textbooks for a large percentage of the effort. And it's slowly transitioning into these other aspects that are necessary in order to be able to address and move forward with that. That is the reason why, if you looked at the LibreText project and its precursor project, the ChemWiki, it was focusing on textbooks and then started to expand into something significantly greater. So that in just the LibreVerse, which is our realization of what we're actually trying to pursue, involves here are our libraries, here's our homework system, here is our um, uh, conductor project management tool, interactives. We'll have some AI involved in there in a very limited fashion, and other aspects in our video. So we are not just basically coming in and mastering how to build an OER or how to use a publisher like Pressbooks are manifold, but it's also how to use the homework system and mastering that, like My Open Math or WebWorker for profit companies, and project management tools in order to be able to facilitate construction of that, like some Kanban-based approaches like Trello or other things that are involved in that, in addition to all the other aspects like ancillary materials, being able to host them and distribute them and build them constructively with the goals that you have in mind, AI, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot to take in, and it's easy to get lost in the sea that we're providing here because it's a big sea that we're providing you. Um, that right there is meant to be tied together into the launch pad, like what we mentioned before, what you've explored over the last couple of days, with the technologies at the top here and the libraries down below. Uh, and the things that I want to talk about today are the comments and conductor. Justin gave a good overview of both of those. I want to target the discussion of the comments and conductor around ancillary materials specifically, although the conductor has a lot more involved in it than just basically ancillary materials. So the first thing to mention is in the commons side of the comments and conductor, the catalog side. If you actually look at it carefully, right below the search infrastructure are these four filters: uh, books, assets, projects, and authors. Assets is just another term for ancillary materials. Those are things outside of textbooks, which are books, and projects, which are accompanied to whatever book that we actually, or whatever effort that we happen to do. And then we can also look at the authors. And interestingly enough, there is no author named chemistry in the search that we have out here. And it shows the output off of here, and then there are specific filters that you can address off of that. It's relatively straightforward and it's simple in its presentation and how it's meant to be used. Um, but the key point is that the LibreTexts hosts, or at least the Commons, will present the content that we host, which is books and assets. So you can use this as a mechanism for distributing ancillary materials. And there are lots of things that we are good at. There are some things that we're not so good at, but the one thing that we are well known for is the ability to distribute OER quite broadly. At the peak of the week, we distribute a million page views a day, and that reflects also to the ancillary materials. So this is a great one-stop shop in order to be able to distribute your content as broadly as possible. And I encourage you not just to store your books, but if you have ancillary materials, to use the LibreVerse in order to be able to facilitate that. If you were to click on the assets, you'll actually see the assets that are connected here that have the tag chemistry somehow connected to it, whether it's in the title or it's a meta tag. We're working on expanding this so the things that are images will actually have images on there. The things that are PowerPoint files, we can upload thumbnails in order to be able to describe that. Right now it's just a simple picture saying this right here is a PowerPoint. This is also a PowerPoint, but it's a PPX instead of PPT. No big difference. This right here is actually a link. You can have images, you can have files, you can upload videos, you can upload audio. Now, the video capability, which I'll show a little bit later on, we expanded the conductor in order to host this system because we wanted to be able to host them outside of YouTube so we don't have issues like ads showing up when students are viewing those things. We want to be able to have better control over the content and being able to upload transcripts or upload caption files in different languages and be able to modify them, which we don't oftentimes have the ability to do if we're using someone else's YouTube video that's there. Again, if you click on the assets, you can find that. We're still expanding the scope of assets. We have somewhere in the order of, I think, 5,000, 6,000 assets on there, but we expect this to be growing quite rapidly in the near future. Assets can also be found associated with a specific book. Uh, Typically, as I'll show you in a moment, the assets are connected to a conductor project, which is the back page for a book, which is the front version of, or the outcome of that project. So this is an example of a book by Armina Reitzel, who will be speaking later on this hour. I don't think she's here yet. from Humboldt State University. This is a project that the Academic Senate from the California Community College System supported via their Open Education Resource Initiative, or OERI. And it's a project dealing with interpersonal communication. You can look and see the commons right here. Not the commons, the table of contents for that book, just like this were any published book. But you'll also notice that there's an extra block here that emphasizes what are the assets connected to that book, which is a convenient way in order to say here is the book and here are the assets. And then you can go in and there are multiple, in this case here, five folders that you can go in and find discussions, formative questions, summative questions, and things like that. This little hint right here, this little hat right here indicates that this summative question is only viewable to me because I'm signed in as an instructor account. So there's some permissioning that you have control over when you actually use the Commons and Conductor in order to host the resources or the ancillary materials that are out here. So the upshot off of here is, again, we could tie resources to or ancillary materials to the actual book itself when you look at the commons, or you can do a search in order to be able to find it right here using the meta tags that or titles or other metadata associated with that project or those assets in order to be able to recognize that. So Um, so as a reminder, and Justin went over this quite extensively, the last hour, the conductor is a project management tool. And it's designed as the back end in order to be able to facilitate the construction and the management of the team in order to that are constructing a OER resource, typically a textbook. And it has lots of features connected to it that's typical of a project management tool. But the one that I only want to focus on here is essentially the ability in order to use the conductor to store documents, specifically answering materials, in order to be able to get to the goal of what that project is meant to do. At that point, I'm going to transition away from the formal PowerPoint slides, and I actually want to pull up this real time in order to be able to transition in order to do this. So just as a reminder, this right here is Armida's interpersonal communications book with all these ancillary materials available here. If I were to go to the conductor project, the back page for her book, it looks something like this. There are a handful of people that are involved in the project. They have discussions, they have tasks which they did not use. I didn't check to see their Gantt plot, and there are other things that are connected to it. But the key point off of here is not the actual discussion in those things. The key point is that you have an asset block. Now you have the ability to turn off the asset block if you don't want to see it, if you're not going to be using that. In addition, you could turn off tasks and you could turn off discussion and use this in a more streamlined fashion. But out of the box, you have all three of those things available. And what was created here again are five individual folders, and then each folder has multiple components. This one here has only one document on here. Um, and I can just basically parse through here and see the discussions, and here are multiple discussions that are connected to it. These are word discussions that are associated. So whatever the modality that you have as a file, you can upload it onto here. We do have 100 MB limit just to make things reasonable. But if you need to expand beyond that, then you can contact us and we can give individual permissions in order to be able to do that. So that was the gist. Let me take a quick look at the chat because it's not pulled up. I want to make sure I don't miss anything, and it doesn't look like that anything has come up here because I've been taking a relatively slow step forward off of here. Okay, so that's what it looks like. I just want to mention again that the resources that you have, you can decide how you want people to be able to see them. There are situations where you may want to upload a document that is only meant for the team in order to be able to view and not meant for anyone outside the team. You may want to have a document that's public to anybody anywhere in the world that's able to come in and see that's connected to it, like what Armida's resources put there. Or you may want to be able to say that this is a document only to verified instructors. And it's oftentimes for sensitive material you don't want everybody to have access to, more specifically, you don't want students to have access to. And you can lock it down where you're basically trusting us that we verify instructor status when you actually get your account, and you don't need to do that anytime for the foreseeable future when you want to be able to distribute these things. And as you remember, or you may remember, your accounts were verified manually, typically 1 to 2 days after you submitted the request, and that was because we had to go through and make sure that yes, you are an instructor and you should have access to instructor resources, which is included in here. So uh, that's the basic principles behind these things. I just want to be able to start to add these things and get you into the feel of adding that in a more real-time fashion. So I'm going to click to this conductor page. This conductor page should look familiar to you because this is the conductor page associated with this project. So it's not a conductor page associated with a book per se, but it does give us the ability in order to have and play around with the assets. And each of you has the ability in order to do so on this conductor page. Or if you've already created a conductor page for another project that you're creating, you can do the same thing. But right now you can go about doing that if you desire to follow along. And what you'll notice that in this conductor page, there are 3 documents that have been uploaded. I actually uploaded these a couple days ago, and these are the PowerPoint files associated with the accessibility, the Forge, and the Jupyter slide. I've given them access to project team members only, which means that they're not distributed to everybody. I don't really have a problem distributing to everybody, but I just didn't really change the switch off of there and such. So I want to be able to upload a file uh, in order to show this case. So I'm going to grab this PowerPoint or this PDF that happens to be on my screen. I don't know what it is other than it's answers to something, but it doesn't really matter. And I just want to show how to go about doing these things. In the assets, we can either upload a file or we can make a folder, and the folder can then be used in order to organize them. I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to call them slide decks. And I'm just going to use this as a mechanism for where's the slide deck? So I'm going to then move the Jupyter into the slide deck. Um, and it gives me the ability. Someone's already started to upload these things, so that's great. I'm just trying to do this. Feel free to make your own folder on this right now. This is more of a um, blank canvas in order to be able to process that, but uh, um, we want to make sure that you are able to do so. Okay. So I moved all those things, those 3 examples into slide decks. And like I said, someone has already created a sample folder on here. And I could even look and say it was beta that actually created it because this is meant internally. So I want to add a document. I'm just going to add this to the top. It's a simple drag and drop. Um, and it pops it right there. And right now it's set up as project team member. So we took the most restrictive default off of here under the expectation that if you accidentally upload something sensitive or something you don't want other people to see, it's best in order to not be able to do that. At that point, I have the ability in order to delete it. I can move it to another folder, like for example, that sample folder. I can download it if I want in order to process that. I'm going to move it into the sample folder that Beta actually did, just like I moved the slide deck that's on there. So this is a way in order to navigate these things. But I can come in and say, I want this thing to not be project team manager, but I want it to be public, and I save it. So now if I were to do a search on Jupyter on the front end, I would then be able to see this slide deck that's there. And I'm going to go about doing that thing and assets, and you can see it's right here, Steam. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, so that's a Jupyter file. So this has not been uploaded, and I need to find out why it hasn't been uploaded. And it might be because it's in a not a public folder that's there. Uh, with that, that's the basic principles of being able to use the conductor in order to store assets and distribute the assets and control who has access to the assets. You have a handful of other features that connected to these things. One is not just to be able to describe the name, but you have the ability in order to put a description. This is a talk on accessibility. And when I save that, I actually need to give it a license on there. And to be compliant with Creative Commons licensing, you also need to give it a source, and that just makes it a little bit clearer. So now I have a description off of there, and that is similar to the descriptions that you see in Armita's asset section right here to make things a bit better organized. But you also notice that in that process, I need to deal with the fact that this is OER. Ideally, if it's not OER, you shouldn't be distributing it unless you're the intellectual property owner. So you need to indicate the licensing that's connected to it and how you want to go about using those things. And then you have a few additional components, including authorship and other meta tags that you can do. You can also add a tag connected to it. And this is a key value tag. So you can come in and say something like uh, animal, and you can call it cats. Um, and I can save it. And now it has a tag connected to that that has the word cats. And it's a convenient way in order to meta tag the resources that you have up there. So, what I would like you guys to do right now, since this is somewhat hands-on, is just to create a folder. You can do that without uploading a file, but if you have a file like what I had before, upload a file into your folder. We just have a handful of minutes. I'd just like to see people be able to use this infrastructure in the way that it's actually meant to be used. So, um, Jan asked a question, can assets be located in multiple folders? Uh, yeah, so Justin was mentioning it has to be duplicated. You can actually generate in just keep it that you have to be duplicated right now rather than having it as a single folder. But you have the ability in order to upload a URL if you want. So if you want to, it's not really upload, but if you want to make cnn.com as a URL, that right there could be an asset that's connected to it. It's not really an asset per se or an ancillary material, but it's oftentimes important in order to say, here are external things that you want to be able to keep track of. Of course, anytime that you reference external resources or you upload documents that are connected to external resources, you then don't have control over what you have access to in order to be able to facilitate that. So, um, let me check to see who has actually. No one has actually created this other than beta, so no one's paying attention to me. So that is great.
Or they
Joy's
did
dis
it in their own book.
Oh, you may have done it in your own book. There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna give everyone the access. Okay, so anyways, so let me mention something relatively briefly about where we're going to be going with using Conductor as a repository infrastructure. So right now, the Conductor system is set up such that uh, the deliverable of a project, the Conductor project, is a book. It's very much focused around a book aspect, but we've had requests over the last handful of months, and we're about to expand that to include not just a book as the final deliverable, but a mini repository. So you could think of it as something like this, Armita's book, without the book connected to it. So you can say, here are a set of worksheets that you want to tie together that's connected to a general chemistry class. Uh, but you don't want to actually have it as a book or tied together, but you can actually then go do searches, find it, and use it in the similar fashion as if you were to find it as a book that's out there. And that right there will be coming out very soon. We've had requests in order to use these things for people who've created little mini repositories of images dealing with, for example, anatomy. You want to be able to have that unconnected to a book that you can move, slice, and dice and figure out what you want and then be able to move forward, or an extensive set of PowerPoint presentations that are not connected to a book that you want to be able to distribute in that way. That aspect of the conductor should be coming out very soon, and you'll hear more about that because you're now on our mailing list. And so, as we start to develop the conductor for greater capabilities for storing of assets and ancillary materials, you'll be kept abreast of that. So that is the gist of what I wanted to be able to do, and is again one part of what the conductor is able to facilitate to. But I strongly recommend that if you have made your own slide decks, and they don't have violations of other people's intellectual property off of there, which is not always the case, I encourage you strongly to use this as an infrastructure in order to distribute your content broadly, because we need not just OER textbooks, we need OER slide decks, OER answer materials. We need lots in order to be able to extricate ourselves from the golden handcuffs that commercial publishers have given us. So with that, I can answer questions. Letitia asked, where can I add the attributions? The attributions for it, you just have to edit the file. So let me go into this one right here. And on the left-hand side, there's a thing that says edit. If you click on there, that's where you can actually put the attributions right here in the public information section. So any other questions or concerns? Okay, well, hopefully this was relatively straightforward for you guys. It is, again, like I mentioned, a relatively small component of what the conductor is able to do, but a very powerful component. And we're happy in order to expand the scope of what the LibreVerse is able to address.